The day I married Sadie was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. She stood there in a simple white dress, glowing like the sun breaking through morning clouds. I remember thinking that everything was finally falling into place. My family had come around, or so I believed. But during the ceremony, I caught my mother looking at Sadie with an expression I had spent years trying to ignore. I did not know then that behind their smiling faces, my own blood was plotting something unforgivable. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from by dropping a comment below. If you believe that love should be protected at all costs, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you will want to stay until the end of this one. My family was never what you would call warm and fuzzy. My mother Lorraine was 58 years old when I got married, a woman who believed she knew what was best for everyone, especially her children. She had this way of making you feel like every decision she made was out of pure love, even when it felt more like control. My father passed away when I was 15, leaving her to raise me and my younger sister on her own. I always respected her for that. She worked hard, built a small real estate business from nothing, and made sure we never went without. But somewhere along the way, she started believing that her sacrifices gave her the right to dictate our lives. My sister Brooke was 27, 3 years younger than me. She had always been closer to our mother, almost like her shadow. Whatever our mother said, Brooke agreed with. Whatever our mother wanted, Brooke helped make happen. I used to think it was just loyalty. I did not realize until much later that it was something darker. Our family was not wealthy by any stretch, but we had a certain status in our small community. My mother loved that status. She loved being known as the widow who built something from nothing, the woman whose children were destined for great things. And in her mind, great things meant marrying into families that matched or exceeded our own standing. Then I met Sadie. I was 26 when I walked into a small coffee shop near the university where I was finishing my graduate degree. Sadie was working behind the counter, 23 at the time, with chestnut brown hair that fell just past her shoulders and a smile that made the whole room feel warmer. We started talking, and I found myself coming back every single day just to see her for a few minutes. Sadie came from a working-class family in the suburbs. Her father was a plumber, a quiet man with calloused hands and a gentle heart. Her mother worked at the local grocery store, always picking up extra shifts to help pay the bills. They were not rich, but they were good people. Sadie was putting herself through school, studying graphic design, dreaming of building a career doing something she loved. I fell for her honesty, her determination, and the way she never pretended to be anything she was not. The first time I brought Sadie home to meet my family, I could feel the temperature in the room drop the moment she walked through the door. My mother was polite, but there was a coldness beneath her words. She asked Sadie about her family, her job, her education, and with each answer I watched my mother's lips press together just a little tighter. Brooke was worse. She asked Sadie where she went to high school, and when Sadie named a public school on the other side of town, Brooke exchanged a look with our mother that made my stomach turn. It was quick, but I caught it. After Sadie left that night, my mother sat me down in the living room. She poured herself a glass of wine and looked at me with that expression she always used when she was about to deliver what she considered wisdom. She said, "Are you sure this girl is right for you? I just want the best for you, sweetheart. You deserve someone who can match what you bring to the table." I told her I loved Sadie, not her family's bank account. My mother smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Over the next few months, strange things started happening whenever Sadie visited. Dinner would include a dish that Sadie had mentioned she was allergic to, and my mother would act surprised when Sadie could not eat it. At family gatherings, Sadie was always seated at the far end of the table, away from the main conversation. Brooke would bring up old family memories, inside jokes that Sadie could not possibly understand, making her feel like an outsider. My mother started mentioning Heather, the daughter of her best friend. Heather was a young lawyer, successful from a good family. Every time I visited, my mother found a way to bring her up. Heather just made partner at her firm. Heather bought a beautiful house downtown. Heather is still single, you know. Sadie noticed everything. One night, driving home after a particularly uncomfortable dinner, She turned to me with tears in her eyes. She said, "I do not think your family likes me. I feel like I'm always being tested and I keep failing." I held her hand and told her to be patient. I said they just needed time to get to know her. I promised things would get better. Looking back, I wish I'd listened to her instead of making excuses for people who did not deserve them. After 3 years of dating, I proposed to Sadie. She said yes, and for a brief moment, I thought everything was going to be okay. My mother even offered to host an engagement party at her house, and I took it as a sign that she was finally accepting Sadie into the family. The night of the party, our house was filled with relatives and family friends. Sadie looked beautiful in a navy blue dress, nervous but hopeful. I could tell she wanted so badly to make a good impression, to finally feel like she belonged. Then my mother stood up to make a toast. She raised her glass and smiled at the crowd. She talked about how proud she was of me, how I had grown into such a fine young man. She talked about our family legacy, our values, our standards, and then, almost as an afterthought, she mentioned Sadie. She said, "And while our future daughter-in-law may not come from the background we expected, we will do our best to help her adjust to our way of life." The room went quiet for just a moment. I saw Sadie's face fall, that hopeful light in her eyes dimming. I wanted to say something, but before I could, my mother was already moving on, accepting congratulations from guests, as if she had said nothing wrong. Later that evening, Brooke handed Sadie a wrapped gift. Sadie opened it to find a book titled something like "The Art of Social Grace, a Guide for Aspiring Ladies." Brooke smiled sweetly and said she thought it might be helpful. Sadie thanked her quietly and excused herself to the bathroom. I found her there 10 minutes later, crying silently, trying not to ruin her makeup. I confronted my mother the next day. She dismissed my concerns immediately. She said I was only trying to help her fit in. "You are too sensitive about this. If she is going to be part of this family, she needs thicker skin." The wedding planning became a battlefield. My mother insisted on controlling every detail. She chose the venue, the caterer, the flowers. When Sadie's parents offered to contribute, my mother politely declined, saying that since she was paying for most of it, she would handle the decisions. Sadie wanted to invite her college roommate, her best friend. My mother said the guest list was already finalized. There was no room. Sadie's family was given a small table allocation, while my mother's friends and distant relatives filled the rest of the seats. On our wedding day, my mother showed up in an ivory dress. Not white, she was careful about that, but close enough that people noticed. Close enough that in the photos, she almost blended into the bridal party. During the reception speeches, my mother spoke for 15 minutes about our family history, my accomplishments, her pride in raising me alone. She mentioned Sadie once briefly, almost like a footnote. Brooke somehow managed to spill red wine on Sadie's mother's dress during dinner. She apologized profusely, called it an accident, but I saw the way she smirked when she thought no one was looking. Sadie's father found me near the end of the night. He was a man of few words, but what he said stayed with me. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Take care of my daughter. She deserves to be loved." I promised him I would. I meant it with everything I had. But after the wedding, things only got worse. My mother called every day, always finding something to criticize about Sadie. The house was not clean enough. Sadie's cooking was not up to standard. She was spending too much money or not enough on the right things. Whenever I defended Sadie, my mother would cry. She would say I had changed, that Sadie had turned me against my own family. She would remind me of everything she sacrificed to raise me, how I was all she had left. Brooke started showing up unannounced, walking through our home like she was conducting an inspection. She would open our refrigerator, comment on what we were eating, suggest that Sadie was not taking proper care of me. My mother kept sending me photos of Heather. Heather at a charity gala. Heather receiving an award. Heather looking stunning in some designer outfit. The messages always ended the same way. "Just thought you would want to see how well she is doing." Sadie found a job at a local advertising agency doing graphic design work she loved. She was talented, dedicated, and her colleagues adored her. For the first time since we got married, I saw her truly happy about something outside our relationship. My mother's response was predictable. She said graphic design was not a real career. She said Sadie should stay home, learn to be a proper wife. She said working women neglected their families. Every time there was conflict, my mother had the same advice for me. She would say, just forgive and forget. Family is everything. We say things we do not mean sometimes, but blood is thicker than water. Let it go. And I did. Over and over again, I let it go. I told Sadie to be patient. I told myself that my mother meant well, that she would come around eventually. I had no idea what they were doing when I was not looking. About a year after our wedding, Sadie came home one evening looking like someone had knocked the wind out of her. She had been laid off. The company cited budget cuts, said they needed to downsize. Sadie was devastated. She had poured herself into that job, worked late nights, taken on extra projects. She thought she was building something. I held her while she cried and told her we would figure it out together. These things happen, I said. You will find something even better. But as weeks turned into months, something strange became apparent. Sadie applied to dozens of positions. She had an impressive portfolio, glowing references from colleagues, years of experience. Yet every interview seemed to end the same way. Initial enthusiasm from employers, followed by sudden silence. One hiring manager actually told her something that made no sense at the time. He said, we received some concerning information about you from a reliable source. We have decided to go in a different direction. Sadie was confused and hurt. She asked what information, what source, but the manager would not elaborate. Her former coworkers started avoiding her calls. People she had considered friends suddenly had no time to meet up, no interest in staying connected. I tried to reassure her. I said maybe it was just bad luck, a tough job market timing that was not right. But deep down, something felt wrong. This was not normal rejection. This felt targeted. The answer came from an unexpected place. I ran into Marcus at a bar one night. We had been friends in college, lost touch over the years. He worked in human resources for a large company downtown. We caught up over drinks, and at some point I mentioned Sadie's struggles finding work. Marcus got quiet. He stared at his drink for a long moment before looking at me with an expression I could not read. He said, "Look, I probably should not be telling you this, but someone has been calling around about your wife." My blood went cold. I asked him what he meant. Marcus explained that a woman had contacted Sadie's former employer and at least 2 companies where Sadie had interviewed. This woman claimed to be a family acquaintance. She told them that Sadie had issues with workplace theft, that she was unreliable, that she had a history of dishonesty. I could barely breathe. I asked Marcus if he knew who the woman was. He shook his head. He said older woman, very confident voice, spoke like someone used to getting her way. That is all I know. I knew exactly who it was. The next day I went to my mother's house. I did not confront her immediately. I needed proof. I needed to know the full extent of what had been done. My mother greeted me warmly, offered me coffee, asked about work. Everything normal. Everything fake. When she stepped into the kitchen to prepare refreshments, I noticed Brooke's phone sitting on the coffee table. A notification lit up the screen, a message from our mother about someone named Heather coming to dinner on Saturday. The message said to invite me but not mention Heather would be there. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. I picked up the phone. Brooke never used a password, too trusting or too careless. I opened her messages and found a conversation with our mother that stretched back months. What I read destroyed something inside me. My mother had personally called Sadie's employer, pretending to be a concerned family friend, warning them about Sadie's supposed character issues. She had done the same with companies where Sadie had applied. Brooke had helped spread rumors in our social circle, telling people that Sadie had only married me for money, that she was manipulative and dishonest. They had been planning dinners and events specifically designed to throw Heather in my path, hoping I would realize my mistake and leave Sadie. One message from my mother stood out. She wrote, "We just need to be patient. Eventually, he will get tired of supporting a failure and come back to his senses. They talked about Sadie like she was an obstacle to be removed, not a human being with feelings and dreams. I put the phone down just as my mother returned with a tray of tea and cookies. She smiled at me and asked if I wanted to stay for dinner. I looked at this woman who had raised me, who had sacrificed so much to give me a good life. I looked at her and saw a stranger. Every time she had told me to forgive and forget, she had been actively destroying my wife's life. Every lecture about family loyalty had been delivered while she stabbed Sadie in the back. I told her I knew everything. Her face went pale. Then, like flipping a switch, she went on the offensive. She said everything she did was because she loved me. She said Sadie was not good enough, would never be good enough. She said I was throwing away my future for a woman who could not even keep a job. I stood up from the couch. I told her that Sadie could not keep a job because she had sabotaged it. I told her that Sadie was the most genuine, hardworking person I had ever met. I told her that the only people who were not good enough were standing in this room. Brooke came downstairs, drawn by the raised voices. She tried to defend our mother, tried to explain that they were only looking out for me. I told Brooke she was just as guilty. I told her that being complicit in cruelty did not make her loyal. It made her an accomplice. My mother started crying. She called me ungrateful. She said I was breaking her heart, abandoning my family for someone who did not deserve me. I walked to the door. I turned back one last time and said that I would not be contacting either of them until they could offer Sadie a genuine apology, until they could prove they had changed. I said I was choosing my wife, my marriage, and my integrity over their poisonous version of family loyalty. Then I left. The drive home was silent except for my own thoughts. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was heading in the right direction. Telling Sadie the truth was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I sat her down in our living room and explained everything. The phone calls, the rumors, the sabotage, the schemes to push Heather into my life. Sadie listened without interrupting. When I finished, she did not explode in anger or break down in despair. Instead, she let out a long breath like she had been holding it for years. She said she always knew something was wrong. She had felt it from the beginning, that sense of being constantly undermined, constantly judged, constantly not enough. But she thought it was her own insecurity. She thought she was being paranoid. She looked at me and said, "Thank you for believing me. Thank you for choosing us." We held each other for a long time that night. For the first time since our wedding, I felt like we were truly partners facing the world together without shadows lurking behind us. The healing process was not quick or easy. I had to grieve the family I thought I had. I had to accept that my mother and sister had chosen their pride over my happiness. Some nights I would lie awake wondering if I had made the right choice, if I should have tried harder to make peace. But then I would look at Sadie sleeping beside me, and I knew there was no other path I could have taken. We started rebuilding. I reached out to friends and relatives who had heard the rumors about Sadie, explaining what had really happened. Some believed me. Others chose to side with my mother. I learned quickly who truly cared about us and who had only been loyal to appearances. Sadie eventually found a new job at a design firm in a city about 2 hours away. We talked it over and decided to move to start fresh somewhere our past could not follow us. Sadie's parents welcomed me with open arms. Her father shook my hand and told me he always knew I was a good man. Her mother cooked us dinner every Sunday after we moved, treating me like I had been part of their family all along. I finally understood what real family looked like. It was not about blood or status or keeping up appearances. It was about showing up for each other, supporting each other, and loving without conditions. 2 years have passed since I walked out of my mother's house. Sadie and I have built a life that feels entirely our own. She is thriving in her new job, earning recognition for her talent. We bought a small house with a garden where she grows tomatoes and sunflowers. Sadie is pregnant now. We are expecting our first child in a few months. When I think about the family we are creating, I feel a peace I never knew was possible. My mother sent me a letter 6 months ago. She apologized for what she called misunderstandings. She said she missed me. She said she wanted to be part of her grandchild's life. I have not written back yet. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday she and Brooke will truly understand what they did and offer the kind of apology that means something. But I am not holding my breath, and I am not waiting for their redemption to live my life. I learned something important through all of this. Forgiveness is not about pretending harm never happened. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the weight of anger so you can move forward. But moving forward does not mean moving backward into the arms of people who hurt you. Setting boundaries is not betrayal. Protecting the people you love is not abandonment. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from those who refuse to treat you with respect. If you are watching this and you are trapped in a similar situation, I want you to know something. You deserve to be loved without conditions. You deserve relationships that build you up instead of tearing you down. Do not let anyone tell you that enduring mistreatment is the price of family loyalty. Real family does not demand that you sacrifice your dignity for their comfort. And if someone keeps telling you to forgive and forget while continuing to hurt you, take a closer look at what they are doing when they think you are not watching. Because the people who preach forgiveness the loudest are sometimes the ones who need it most. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between your partner and your family? What did you do and what did you learn from it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is struggling with the same decision. If this story touched you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss more stories like this one. Thank you for being here with me today. I hope that whatever challenges you are facing, you find the strength to protect your peace and the people who truly matter to you. Take care of yourselves and remember that you are worthy of love that does not come with conditions.